I think I might have a new favourite book. Mark your calendars, people. Alfie finally likes a book. I know, I wasn't expecting it either, but Big Swiss by Jen Beagin blew me away. I love this. The one thing that I'm really discovering this year about my reading taste is that I love an absurdist comedy. Like anything that perfectly walks the line between tragic and comedic and has a bit of random, weird comedy in it. Like people are just saying the first thing that comes into their head, like it's intrusive thoughts to the nines, every character's demented. That's the sort of book that I want. I think Confederacy of Dunces is what put me on the pipeline, and a book like this really solidified it for me. I love this. And I secretly didn't want to love it as well because my brother loved it. So, of course, the way siblings go, I was actively rooting against liking this book because I wanted to have a contrary opinion, as you do. But no, he was right. This book slaps. I had a great time. I almost gave it 5 stars, but then I thought, after some self-reflection, I thought that's a bit hyperbolic. So I'm going to say high 4, but very high 4. Like really touching on that 5. I was nervous as well because it starts and it feels very derivative of a Tessa Moshfegh, as lots of books have been that I've read this year, and I've critiqued them for not having a more original authorial voice. But then something switched. I don't know how she did it. Around the halfway point, it became so fresh and new to me. It completely transcended a Tessa Moshfegh. I was like, no, this is something even better than what she does, and I am eating it up. So as I've already said, it's alternative, it's tragicomic, it's sapphic, it's good sapphic representation as well. Like there were choices that were made that I really respected in this book, which I'll get into, but it's more or less, the whole second act feels a lot like a rom-com. It's sort of playing on that very popular trope of like, oh, our main character told one big lie to get the affection of this person who's just come into their life, and then all of these other lies precipitate out of that big lie, but it's all worth it because then they get to have this relationship until the third act where it all comes out about the truth, and then, you know, things break down. And yeah, it's very typical of that kind of rom-com, but I wasn't mad at it. It managed to find its own niche in that very oversaturated idea. Our main character, Greta, she lives in this very small, like, Hudson Bay town, but she works for, like, she does the transcribing of, like, the minutes in therapy sessions for this psychologist that she works for, and that's where she first meets Big Swiss. Like, she meets her through the guise of hearing her voice that she then has to transcribe in therapy. And she's Big Swiss, the nickname that she gives to her because she's this tall woman from Switzerland. That she doesn't know her name, of course, because those therapy sessions, they preserve anonymity. I think this could be a triggering book if you have like a relationship with therapy and you have like boundary issues with like that kind of stuff getting exposed. Check your trigger warnings. I could see this upsetting people just based on like the consent issues that are at play here, but then that's also where the sort of nuggets of comedy are also found. So it is a fine line. This book is a tightrope. You know, if she had gone any further into like what's not socially acceptable, like this could have been a very different book. Like it could have been so much more upsetting, and then you wouldn't have been able to find the comedy. Like I don't know how she did it. Like very gentle touches, baby steps. But yes, I think it helps that Greta, she doesn't actively seek out Big Swiss. She meets Big Swiss by accident in a dog park when they're both walking their dogs and casually bump into one another, which is the impetus for this cover. That's Greta's dog and that's Big Swiss's dog. And that is the catalyst for this like very long, tumultuous love affair, because Big Swiss is already married. And I really appreciated the way it was depicted. I think the physicality of it, especially, a lot of the sapphic romance books that I've read this year, they felt very, very highbrow, like very above, including the sort of intimacy that would be involved between two lesbian lovers. So I appreciated that this book was very explicit in that regard. Like, it didn't have any of this sort of like too uptight, just above depicting. Not to say that every queer relationship has to be physical, but I liked that in this it was incredibly physical. Like, it felt like it was making up for lack of physical representation in generations prior, you know, like pages and pages of it. And I was like, yeah. And it was well written as well. I think what I found very liberating about this book was the way that it so openly has conversations about mental health, where you feel like you're going through therapy, but in the best way. Like, there's so many conversations about wellness and our childhood and how trauma can like bubble up to the surface and have these impacts on us later down the line, which I really respected the book for getting into the thick of. I think this is one of those instances where this came into my life at the right time. Like, if I was in a better place with my mental health, I probably wouldn't enjoy this as much. But I think because I'm starting to unravel, like, I feel like, I mean, not to trauma dump or anything, but I feel like I'm uncovering a bit of an anxiety problem with myself. Like, sometimes I catastrophize and I like to create these like faraway disasters in the horizon. So reading a book about someone who is, I mean, by the way, our main character is a woman in her 40s. Like, that doesn't happen often, you know? Literature is always so like youth-centric. And so to see this like middle-aged woman who was down and out and dealing with all the same problems that a 20-something would deal with, like, she barely has a place to live, she barely has a job, she walked out of a perfectly happy relationship just because she wanted to feel more. That all felt very relatable to me. I was like, oh, it's nice to see that becoming an adult is not a clear line in the sand transition. It's this overnight thing that you have to work out every day. And it's okay if you're never truly found. Like, that's the main takeaway I had from this book. Like, we're all a work in progress, and that's okay. I think this is prime adaptation material. If they turned this into like a BBC TV series, I would genuinely watch it. And I'm saying that as someone who doesn't watch that much TV, you know? Like, I think this has all of the good stuff to be turned into like a really punchy comedy. Like, it's very modern, but it also has that kind of humour that, you know, people always complain about is like going out of fashion. Like, it's very I won't say edgy, but like it's provocative is what I'd say. Like, it says things that is just on the line of getting away with, and because you like the characters and you like the author, you're okay with it too. Like, I had such a blast with this. I'm wittering at this point, you get the idea. I gave it a high 4. More than anything, it's an enjoyable experience. Like, I like a book where the actual reading process is what is the best part of it. Like, it's not so much the things you take away, it's the actual in the moment enjoyment of it. Like, this is definitely one of those books. Like, you'll have a great time reading it. You might not have as much staying power as I think I'll take away from it, but I think you'll have a great time.